morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Good. Happy Friday to everybody. Say good morning to everybody. Come on now. Don't be bashful in this in Facebook. Don't everybody be saying Chad's here. So if Chad's here, everybody's got to say good morning in the chat today. We're going to try to set a chat record today for as many people we can get in here to put in the good morning chat. And I'm trying to do something also a little bit outside of my share to a page. Can I do this? Can I do this? Probably not. I'm trying to be a little bit outside my comfort zone here because Jay is not able to be on here this morning. And so I get a little nervous when Jay is not here because I might not be able to push this. All right, man, my first time, guys. First time I was able to share it to a Facebook page and a group. Please give me a round of applause on that. I just learned how to do that right now. Man, I tell you, if you don't try, you will not succeed. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. It's Cullen over there. Man, we got a good show for you today. Cullen and I had a great conversation last night. I'm excited to have him as our guest here. As I get ready to kick him off, I want to say a couple things. Of course, as Chad, it wouldn't be normal if I didn't say a couple things to start things off here. So good morning, everybody. Happy Figured Out Friday. Scott's here from Michigan. We got Heather here. Chris is here. Several of you in Facebook. Don't be bashful, Facebook. Do not be bashful today. I just first a shout out to Cullen because it is 5:15 in the morning, and this guy is always with us each and every morning. So I just love that. Good morning, Lisa. Michelle is here. So good morning to you all. So last night, what's up, Chris? Chris is driving out there. So last night I did something that I was not very successful at, but just something that here it is. I want to show you guys what I did last night. Let me do a share screen just to give you a quick little. So last night I decided to do one of those things that brought me back to my youth of being a little childish and trying a hot wing competition. And I said, you know what? This sounds like this would be really fun. And so I did it. And this morning, let me just tell you, it's not as fun as it was last night. The pain is one of those that I wanted to show you this red pepper because I didn't even know about the Scoville. I did not even know about this chart until people started running some numbers to me and telling me certain things. I'm like, what are we doing? Like, I just normally get hot wings and maybe some Inferno wings, but like this looks like like we would only get a drop. Like we were only allowed a drop on some of the chicken wings. But just to let you know, for the record, because I'm extremely competitive, I made it all the way up to the top. So what you get at restaurants, as you can see here, like jalapeno peppers, 3,000, 8,000, some of these things that you can get like red chilies. I mean, red chilies, come on now. Like that's a joke. 500 to 700. I made it all the way to 7 million, whatever Scoville chart that is. So I made it to 7 million, 7.5 is where I made it to last night. And this morning I made it to Pepto-Bismol. So it was okay. I did enjoy it. It was fun. It was for a charity. It was for mental health awareness with depression and people who go down this path and raising money for self-awareness of depression. So it was for a good cause. And that's what I keep telling my stomach this morning, that I keep saying it was for a good cause, Brock. It was for a good cause. So, but we had a good time last night. So that's what I did last night. Quick update. Thank you so much for those asking, calling, praying, texting, and everything else on Facebook and different messages. Bryce is much better. He actually went to school today. So he is doing better. Still a little bit of a little black and blue back there, but glad that is behind me. So I can check off emergency room late at night, big gash and head. So I got that off my bucket list. And so before we get into the last question, before I get into Cullen, I want to put it out here. Okay. For those that are on this call this morning, if you're able to either give me a thumbs up, give me a text or maybe put a comment in Facebook, put something out there that I want you to tell me out of all the ones that you've been on, all the Figure Out Fridays, all the Mindset Morning shows, I want to take about 15 to 20 seconds and I want you to think about how many people you've met through this morning show. I want you to think about how many people you've met and been able to have maybe a text message with that you normally wouldn't have had. How many people you've now maybe do business with, maybe how many people are on Facebook friends, how many people you've engaged with. I want you to think about it. If just give me a thumbs up or tell me if you got a number inside your head of how many people this show has engaged you with somebody you didn't know beforehand. And the reason why I asked that while you think about it is because I thought about Cullen and I said, damn, I had no idea who this guy was 4 months ago, 5 months ago. No clue. No clue who he was. And when I started to, wow, let's see, 12, 20. Wow, good stuff. 3+, congratulations. I just started to just think about the relationships that I didn't have a year ago that I have today. And it's fascinating to me because people sometimes often ask, like, Brock, how do you know so many people? Like what's going on? Like, what do you do? And so when Coach Burt was in town, we were discussing vehicles, the vehicle communication. What is the vehicle that allows you to interact with other people? And several of you that came to the event on Tuesday sent some testimonials, sent some reviews for us, which we really appreciate. He's like, man, I met some new people. And some of you, especially with Chad, like I never would have had the relationship if it wasn't for Coach Burt for me to go up there at that time period. And what this relationship and what this show has meant to me is like, it is amazing, amazing of the relationships that I've built. And I'm very blessed each and every morning. I just thank God for the opportunities that he has given me because I've been able to help people. I've been able to see some of you go to Coach Burt's Lodge. I've been able to engage with you. I've been able to have so many relationships in a personal level as well as in a business level. And so I'm just so very blessed. And so I appreciate you guys all sharing these numbers that are on here because it's amazing to me. And Cullen is one of them. And so when I reached Cullen was on he's part of the Washington, D.C., where he works with a team with Dan Roshan that asked me to be on a podcast. Well, after my podcast, he asked me to see if hey, would you be willing to coach? And so I coach his organization every Thursday morning at 9 a.m. Yet if it wasn't for this engagement here, Dan would have never saw me talk on what I do. And this led to me to Cullen. And many times, just like in the Coach Burt Monster Producer that I'm in, the relationships are only these things are only as good as you want them to be. Meaning you all can see people's names on here, meaning you can go watch the video. You can go see these names. Cullen and I were talking yesterday. I said, every time somebody says something to you, gives you a like, give you a heart, I want you to go click on their name and I want you to call them on Facebook. I want you to say, thank you for supporting me. Thank you for being a part of this. And you never know where that conversation could go. So if you only look at this call is I got to be on this call at 8:15 and I leave at 8:45 and I shut it down, you're really not using all the tools in your toolbox. You're really not using what this is for, is to be able to have this conversation we're about to have with Cullen, because I got to learn more about Cullen. I got to learn about his past. I got to learn about what he wants to grow and where he wants to go, that I never would have been able to do that if I didn't pick up the phone and he didn't pick up the phone and answer or reach out to me. And so I just think it's fascinating. So when you hear his story today, when you hear what he went through, when you hear where he is today and where he's trying to grow and where he's trying to go, I want you to think about yourself and be like, man, who do I know? Who can help me get to where I want to go? Man, he's still plugging at it, because we never reach our destination. Okay. If we do, then we're just settling. At least that's how I look at it. So with that being said, Mr. Cullen from Seattle. Good morning, brother. Sorry, we're going to go a little bit longer today because I know I spoke a little bit more and I had some problems with Facebook. But good morning, sir. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm great. How are
Where's
you?
Charlie? Where's Charlie?
So yeah, we gotta bring Charlie in early this morning. Charlie's not a fan of 5:15 either, but
I
yeah.
just love Charlie because really, what happens if you don't bring Charlie into it? Doesn't he like bark or do something crazy?
Well, yeah, he's great. So I work from home. I'm at EXP, Realtor EXP, and I work from home. And when I'm at my desk, he's really good. He either lays at my feet or he lays in his kennel, which is next to my desk. But once we get to about 6 o'clock, he figures his work day is over. He's done that. Now it's Charlie time. And so if I get on the phone or shoot a video of my kitchen, he thinks it's puppy playtime. And so he brings me toys and he barks and says, no, you've talked all day. Now it's my time.
everybody wants a piece of our time. Isn't that the truth?
Yep.
So man, tell me a little bit about what you got going on, buddy.
Well,
Tell
before
me
we get started, a couple of things that you said sparked with me. And so the two things I want to go is, you mentioned that I'm always here at 5:15. And I look at this group as being two things with that. One is I have what I call my 3 a.m. people. And those are the people that if I'm in really bad spot, I can call them at 3 a.m. and they're going to answer the phone. And they also know that I'm one of their 3 a.m. people. They're in a spot, they can call me at 3 a.m. and I'm going to answer. And the first question is, how do I help you? What do you need? And I kind of look at this group that way. I don't have to be here at 5:15. I'm here because you people are my tribe. You're my group. Where else would I be? And it reminded me of, there's a great YouTube video that's out there. Ernie Johnson, who's a studio host for TNT, does their basketball and baseball shows. He went and spoke at for Nick Saban's Alabama football team. Do yourself a favor and watch that 5-minute video. Ernie Johnson talks to Alabama football. And he talks about, I have a get-to job, not a have-to job. I get to do this. I don't have to do this. But more importantly, he talks about his son who recently passed away, who was severely disabled, and the life lessons that this boy taught not only their family, but the community. And it's really emotional. It's very powerful. And so I strongly encourage you at some point over the next couple of days to check out that video.
Ernie Johnson, you said?
Ernie Johnson. In fact, what I can do, Brock, I'll send you the link and then you can push it out.
Okay.
So yeah, my story. I lived a great life. I grew up in a very large family by today's terms, very loving, very close family. Grew up in Alaska, which is its own story and adventure. But when your life, you think is just your life, and that's how everyone lives, and you don't think there's anything abnormal about what you do. But when people find out you're from Alaska, it's like, oh my gosh, you got to tell me all about that. So I grew up, I was a hockey player through school and moved around a little bit, did a few different things, and ended up here in Seattle. And about 6 years ago now, I started having some vision issues. And I've always been healthy despite at times my best efforts to ruin my health. I've stayed fairly healthy. And I started having some vision problems. And I started going to my eye doctor, and he told me, he goes, I wouldn't worry too much about it. I don't see anything. He goes, I think you just have an ocular migraines, which I'd never heard of before. But I said, okay. He goes, if it doesn't bother you, it's just kind of an annoyance, because I wouldn't worry too much about it. I said, okay. So I didn't. And it started getting progressively worse. I started having more vision problems and different vision problems. And then I started getting these massive skull splitting headaches, which I've never gotten a headache in my life. And all this stuff would last for 15 or 20 minutes and go away. And it happened 2 or 3 times a week. And all of it was just kind of annoying, but it wasn't something I was really going to be that concerned about. I'm not an anti-doctor guy, but I am an anti-medicine guy. I don't want to spend a lifetime popping pills. I don't take anything unless I absolutely positively have to. And but then things got really kind of scary when I started hallucinating, and I knew that I was hallucinating. And we were sitting here on a Saturday. I was still married at the time. We're sitting here on a Saturday, and I've always been a big reader. And my wife said to me, "Okay, what's the matter with you?" I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, you read fast. You haven't turned a page in a while. So what's going on?" And I said, "Well, I don't know how to tell you this because I don't want to say it out loud, but I know this isn't real. But in our living room right now, I see 3 large Chuck E. Cheese type cartoon characters standing in our living room." And I said, "I know they're not real, but they look to me as real as you do." And of course, what are you talking about? So I was trying to explain to her what I've been seeing. And she said, "Well, how long has this been going on?" And being a good man, especially a good American man, I finally had to answer and say, about a year. And of course, her head exploded. "What do you mean you haven't said anything?" "Well, how do you say you're seeing things you know aren't real?" And so she was an engineer. As a good engineer, we started trying to engineer the problem. And we started going to see doctors. And we went to see doctor after doctor after doctor, all kinds of tests run. Kind of the general consensus was, for some reason, I wasn't getting enough blood into my brain at times, but nobody knew why. There were no blockages. My heart was fine. Everything flowed the way it was supposed to, blood-wise. The good news was all the scary stuff got ruled out. So it's not ALS. It's not a tumor. It's not MS. It's not Parkinson's. It's, none of those things that you worry about with neurological in your brain. It was none of those things, but they could not figure out what was going on. And that was frustrating. And it was tough to deal with. But the worst part for me was when you'd ask all these different specialists, okay, well, if you're me, what would you do next? I have no idea to tell you what to do. And I started getting into a really dark place, emotionally, mentally. Kind of funny what you mentioned, that your hot wings challenge last night and what it was for, because I was in a really bad place with my emotional health and my mental health. And I'd never been in a place like that before. And again, it's one of those things of, who do you talk to about that? Who do you reach out to and say, hey, I'm not having really good thoughts right now? So one of the things I started doing was I started reading and listening to a lot of podcasts on purpose of life and why are you here? Because I started thinking about, if I wasn't here anymore, outside of my immediate family, would it really matter? Would my existence have mattered to anyone? And in the course of doing that kind of exploration, I read something that really sparked with me, and I just posted it on my Facebook page. I don't know why I did it. I just did it, and I started getting responses to it. And so I kept, every time I'd read something that really inspired me or moved me, I would post it. And then it kind of morphed into, I would take what I read and paraphrase a little bit, put it out there. And then over the last 4+ years, it's all been my own thought. And I write not every day, but probably 360 days a year. I write, and it's just titled Today's Thought We're Thinking About. And it's just something that I hopefully is motivational, inspirational, positive. And then I spill it about my day and what's going on in my world. And then about 6 months ago, again, I don't know why I started doing it, but I did. I'm a foodie. I love to cook. My day, I feel like I'm in my space when I'm in my kitchen at home. That's the end of my day, and that's my Zen moment. They have some music going, cooking, whether it's for myself. I like to cook for family and friends. And I just started shooting a little 2 to 3 minute long video that's also kind of the same thing of a thought that's through my head about the commonality we all have. I think one of the great paradoxes of life is we're all unique and different, but yet we're also all the same. And, we all struggle with these same issues. And what really clicked with me was one of my closest friends is extremely successful in almost any measure of life. But he and I start talking and exploring into some of these topics, and he deals with the exact same issues that I'm dealing with. And you think, how can you have these problems? You've got the great life everyone wants. You still have these problems. You still have these issues. You still have the self-doubt and the feelings you're inadequate and I'm not enough. And those people have it better than I do. And those people have it easier than I do. And all my life is just not great. And we all deal with those thoughts. And so then it's, how do you acknowledge those thoughts, move yourself through those thoughts, and get into a better place? And so in the course of all this, I've developed quite a following of people comment on my posts, like my posts, and then started, you should write a book. You should write a book. I still see myself as a quiet, shy kid who grew up in a large family, who's really goofy, who would buy a book that I wrote. But once you get out of your head and you realize that, and I honestly believe that my purpose, my existence in this life is to do one thing, and that's to help other people have a better life. And by helping them have a better life, that allows me to have a better life, because I'm filling my mission. And I've done that for years in real estate. I've been involved with nonprofits. I've coached athletes. And now as part of this, working through on this book, someone connected me with a book editor who's helping me with some stuff. And she said, you should start a coaching practice with this. And again, that self-doubt, the negative talk is like, who would listen to me, coach? Are you kidding me? I'm divorced. My dog died. My mom died. I'm barely holding it together. You want me to coach people? But then when you start really exploring into that and start thinking about, again, why am I here? Yeah, it is because I know for myself, when you're in those spots, you think no one knows what I'm dealing with. No one has ever been where I'm at right now. And nobody, how am I ever going to get out of this hole? I've been there. I know that hole. I know exactly how to get you out of that hole. And I think the hardest part for all of us is to go, I need help. I need someone to help me. I'm lost. I'm confused. I'm hurt. I need help. And it's hard for us to raise our hand and ask for that help. Once you do, it's incredible the number of people who go, put their arm around you, go, brother, I got you. Come on.
Cullen, let me ask you a question. When you raised your hand and you were saying to people, I need help, what do you think causes people not to want help? What do you think causes people not to raise their hand? I mean, they know that they have challenges, they have problems, but or maybe is it they don't know? Like, what do you think in your experiences? What do you think is that? Because there could be somebody we're talking to today, like, oh my God, am I the only one in here? It's like he's speaking to me. Like, what do you think causes people not to raise their hand?
I think there's several things with it, Brock. I think one of the big things is that we condemn ourselves. We feel like, because you look at everyone else's, especially with social media. And I'm not big on blaming social media. I'm not big on conspiracy theories. That's just not, I don't believe all that stuff is true. But I think when you're starting down that spiral into a downward spot, into a bad place, you look at everyone else's Disneyland version of life on social media, and you think, oh my God, all those people have life figured out. I'm the only one who's lost here. And so you feel like you're the only one that's there. And my opinion, it's strictly an opinion, is the more people show you that Disneyland life, the worse the real life is. Because they're putting this thing out here so hard to try and make everyone else think they've got it figured out. when they really don't. And so I think that's part of it. I think part of it, especially for men, is we're taught as young boys, and we're raised this way of, you got nothing to complain about, shut your mouth, put your boots on and go back to work. If you got time to complain, you don't have enough to do. Go find something to do. And I think that's a big part of it too. And I think that it's really hard for a man to admit that. And, one of the things I've figured out in real estate is, and I just learned, and I've been in real estate for 20 years. I never knew this until a few years ago. I was talking with a friend of mine here in Seattle who's another guy who's very successful. And it dawns on me, he has no idea how real estate works, which I understand because he doesn't do real estate, but it got me to thinking about all the things that we don't understand in life. And when you're head of a household and you reach a certain point in life, you realize, I have no idea how life insurance works. Should I have whole? Should I have term? Do I have enough? And you don't know. And you reach a point where you're embarrassed to ask because you think you should know. And again, like the time when I was still married, my wife would ask me, because I was having this conversation with her. She said, "Well, do you think we have enough life insurance?" Oh yeah, we're covered. No problem. Don't worry about it. I have no idea. I got what the guy told me to get because he's the salesman. He sells us stuff like he should know, right? But I don't know how that stuff works. And you don't want to admit that. It's hard as an adult to admit that I don't know something. It's hard to admit that I'm scared. It's hard to admit that I'm worried. And it's hard to admit those things to yourself, much less to somebody else.
I remember going to AA, and I was like, because like you said, is many times there are people right now that are listening that think that they're the only ones with the problem that they have. And I thought that was me because when I was drinking a bottle of wine in the morning, yes, I drink a bottle of wine in the morning. It was always white wine too. I always liked white wine. It was easier to drink. And I'm like, nobody's going to believe me. Like nobody's going to be like, they're going to think I'm like a complete like idiot. Like they're going to be like, you don't do that. Like, no, there's no way. You seem to have your life put together. And I was just like crumbling inside because I couldn't start my day without having a bottle of wine. And I kept going down this dark path. I'm like, I'm effed up, man. I don't like, who can I talk to about this? And I remember at the time, now I can laugh about it, but when you were sharing your story about, to me, it's being alone. And when I went in the AA rooms, the biggest thing the AA rooms taught me was like, I can't remember the one guy telling me, he's like, wine? It's like, I can't say the exact words he said, but he's like, I'd be drinking Jack and Coke first thing in the morning. Like wine's a freaking sissy drink. I'm like, oh, all right. So you did that too. And the next thing you know, the room's like, yeah, and this is here. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, wow, everybody was like going through this. And it made me feel like, wow, I could talk to these people. That was the biggest thing the first year in AA. And so like, I mean, I knew a little bit about what you're going to say, but like, it kind of leads into like, this is what this, why I do and why I love this show of Figure It Out Friday, because there's some of you today trying to figure out something and you're like, man, I just feel alone. Nobody's going to understand it. Or nobody else has this problem. One of the greatest videos I listen to is Bob Proctor with Eric Thomas. And he talks about your limiting belief. Like Cullen, we say many times, like, you got to start believing in yourself, man. Like when are you going to start believing in yourself?
So, I guess first thing on that is, and not that I wish everyone would go to AA, and I haven't been to AA, but when I was coaching athletes and I coached a team sport, one of the things I used to tell kids all the time was, if you really want to be a great athlete, you should be required to wrestle for a year, because wrestling is mano a mano. And when you're laying on your back counting ceiling tiles, you can't say it was his fault. He didn't have his guy, or I passed to him and he didn't do his job. No, it's all on you. And you got to realize that this is about me, and I've got to get better, and I've got to improve myself if I'm ever going to get better at this. And, you talk about the AA is being open and being vulnerable and saying, hey, you know what? I have this problem. And realizing, you know what? Everybody here knows exactly what I'm talking about. Everyone here has been where I'm at right now. They all can help me get out of this spot. Mm-hmm. But the other thing is, and, again, I question myself all the time about, even with what I went through, I still have had a very blessed life. There are people who go through unspeakable horrors, and you cannot imagine how anybody comes through that. And I think we get self-absorbed into, again, kind of a social media thing of, no one's ever dealt with what I've dealt with. Yeah, they have. They've dealt with a lot worse, and they still get up every day. And, it's a famous book, but Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. Talking about being a Holocaust survivor. And he talks very clearly. You can either be a survivor or you can be a victim, but you can't be both. And survivors move forward, victims stay in their past, and they never move forward with their life. And so I think about that a lot. And, I think I've survived what I went through to get me to this place because I can help other people get out of their dark place and help them move forward with life.
I love it, man. I love it. Chad, I saw you have your hand raised there, but I didn't know if you
Yeah, if I know we're here at the time, but Cullen, and it's your story, my man. But because you kept pushing forward and taking next steps and was persistent, can you tell the folks just high level how you ended up your diagnosis or what happened and what was causing this? Can you tell them that?
Sure. Yeah. I'll be as brief as I can because we're up on time. But I was sharing one day with a woman who's a mortgage loan officer that I've done some business with, and I shared her what was going on, and I kept it really quiet for the most part because I didn't like. Again, how do you tell people you're hallucinating? And so she said, you should talk to my husband. He had been a chiropractor, now he's a consultant who helps other doctors build their practices. She said, Roy talks to a lot of different doctors, and he's out there. He may know somebody. That's okay. So I called him up, told him what was going on. He said, will you write that up for me and send it to me? With your permission, I want to send it out to some people. And I said, sure. So I did. He called me a couple days later. He goes, I think I know a guy who can help you. I shared your story with him. He thinks he knows what's wrong with you. He thinks he can help you. Here's the details on him. He goes, I'll tell you right up front. This guy is probably the smartest doctor I've ever encountered. But as one of these guys who is really smart, he's also is a little bit out there to talk to. He goes, he's a different kind of guy. He's on a different plane than all the rest of us. And what I'm saying is he's playing chess while the rest of us are playing checkers. It's okay. So I go up meet this guy, and he has a practice that's completely around traumatic brain injury. He deals mostly with stroke victims and people who've been in car wrecks. We go up there, run through a whole bunch of tests, do a bunch of x-rays, and then we sit and talk just about life. And he says, my initial consultation is 3 hours long. But when people come to me, he goes, they're just like you, they're at the end of their rope. They've been everywhere and can't find an answer. So he said, the problem is doctors don't know their patients anymore because we don't have these kinds of conversations. So I need to know all about your life. So we start talking about everything. And we talked about my history in sports. He said, have you ever been concussed? I said, oh gosh, yes. There's how many times? Oh, at least 10 without thinking about it. He said, okay, have you ever been knocked out? And I said, oh yeah. Again, at least 3 without thinking about it. He said, I know exactly what's wrong with you. I know exactly how to fix you. I don't know why the fix worked. I just know that it did work. And what he explained to me was, he said, if you think about your brain being like a bank vault, everything's encased in concrete. You got one door that lets everything in and out. And he said, what happens is when you hurt your brain with concussions, you're knocked unconscious. He said, you get cracks in that barrier and stuff starts to leach into your brain that doesn't belong there. And he said, part of it is stuff that's in our body already, but part of it's toxins that we have living in an industrial society. And he said, for you, for some reason, he said, I see it mostly with motor skills, but for you, it affected your vision. And he said, if you think about an old computer, would get a power spike in it, it would, and then reset itself. He goes, that's basically what's going on in your brain. Your brain gets the stuff in there, doesn't know what to do with it. So it kind of hits a short circuit button, reboots itself. And he goes, that's why stuff lasts for 10 or 15 minutes and goes away. And he had me, did some dietary changes. Most of it was just stuff. He worked a lot with my balance and coordination things. And I think I was telling you, Chad, when he had me do this thing called the zombie walk when I first went up there. Just exactly what you think. You put your arms out in front of you, close your eyes, and march with your knees up. So I did it supposed to do it for a minute. I did it for about 40 seconds. I thought I was standing in place the whole time. He had me open my eyes. I'd walk forward about 6 feet and had turned 90 degrees. But with my eyes closed, I thought I was standing in one spot the whole time. And he goes, those are the kinds of things we have to fix because your brain equilibrium isn't jiving with what your body is. So we've got to refix it. So through a lot of therapy stuff he had me doing, it worked. I used to get hand tremors all the time, and that all stopped as well. So I don't know why it worked. I just know it worked. And I remember the day I saw him, the first time I saw him, and he said, I know exactly what's wrong. I know exactly how to fix you. I got back in my car and I sat in the parking lot and cried for half an hour because I'd been through all this stuff trying to find somebody who can say, I can help you. And it wasn't, well, maybe we can do this or we could try this. Just a total absolute of, I know exactly what's wrong with you and I know exactly how to fix you. Exactly. It gave hope. And hope's everything.
Cullen, man, I appreciate you sharing your story, man, especially as, going down, you start revisiting different things inside your brain, inside your heart, and where it goes through. So, guys, if you can give him some love, give him some hearts, give him some on the Facebook world. I appreciate those on Facebook for those being on here today in Zoom. Collins is in his information is in the chat. I'm going to copy paste it one more time, or Jay, if you can, I'll do it right here. But Colin is one of those people, like, he really works heavy on the mindset. He does a lot of life coaching as well. He's worked with some top athletes. He's worked with people. So I always love having conversations with other coaches and what they bring to the table and what they got going on. So feel free to reach out to Colin. Maybe I know Michelle was on here. She said that something's happening to her son that she was going through, and you just never know where your help could possibly be, or that person that you just talk to, so you don't feel alone. So Colin, God bless you, man. I love you, brother. I mean, you've become really close to me, and I love being able to see you every single day. And I know a lot of you on here have grown relationships with Colin as well. And that's where it led me when I started this morning on my topic. So I appreciate you, man, for being on here each and every morning, and for sharing your stuff. And guys, feel free to reach out to this guy. He's a wealth of knowledge, and read his stuff. Plus, I like his videos with Charlie. He always make me laugh.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate you. Like I said, if it hadn't been for Dan bringing into my life, I don't know where I'd be. But you guys are my tribe, man. This is a get to, not have to. I love being here at 5:15, man. This is a great way to start my day.
Awesome, man. Appreciate you all, guys. Have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy yourselves. Be safe, and we will see everybody on Mornings with Maxwell, 8:15 on Monday.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Colin.